Welcome to Trending Faith here on GCU TV. My name is Ashley Romantic, and let's get started with today's question. Do the dead go immediately to heaven, or do they sleep in the grave until Christ comes again? What do you think, Tim?
Well, what I think is Jason should be asking or answering this question instead of me, but I'll take a shot at it. The phrase in 2 Corinthians chapter 5 really came to mind when I read this question. And it basically says that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. So I think that there's a lot of views. There's been a lot of discussion about this over the centuries. You know, what happens to a person when they die? Do they just go into some kind of a soul sleep? They end up in Abraham's bosom, as the Old Testament Jews believed. Is there some other intermediary place that a person's soul goes to? And I think by what Paul said, it seems pretty clear that, when you leave this planet, leave this existence, you go to your eternal state. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of a simple guy, and that verse really, for me, frames it pretty clearly that there isn't really a place where your soul goes to sleep or to rest, if you would. It goes to its eternal place. And Paul anticipated being with Jesus after death. I mean, you leave here, you go there. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
Well, I'm probably going to disappoint after that, after you build me up. I tend to agree with that. There has been a minority view historically that perhaps we go down and we sleep and essentially wait the return of the Lord. And so Scripture doesn't really have much of a category for a disembodied spirit. We talked about that with ghosts. So to think of a spirit departing from the body and then being in the presence of the Lord, it's hard to understand exactly how that works. And the Bible is fairly nebulous in terms of what happens after death. It doesn't speak of a lot of the details. We do see the martyred saints at the throne asking in the book of Revelation how long. The decapitated martyrs in particular are called out, and they're asking how long before justice prevailed. They seem to be in the presence of the Lord, but it's a highly symbolic book, and so you're not looking at a description of exactly what this is like. But I do tend to agree with you. I think it's fairly straightforward. Paul, in that passing comment, seems to suggest, we're going to be in the presence of God. Now, in the Old Testament, there's sort of a nebulous approach to death at some point. This conversation about Sheol and going down into the darkness or into the grave. And it becomes increasingly clear as the prophets speak more to it. And in the New Testament, we have greater clarity. I think the one thing that is really helpful to learn or to notice about Scripture is there is a sense in which when we die, we don't immediately go to our final place of existence. And so there is a judgment that waits on the other side of death, and it's waiting for that particular time when the Lord returns. So sometimes a person will say, well, would a person go immediately to heaven or to hell? And really the final judgment is reserved for that final day of the Lord, that final day when Jesus will actually raise the dead up together with the living, and there will be a final judgment. But it's very complicated, and it's not altogether clear at every point. But I do tend to think Tim's on the right track there.
Okay, well, I hope that answers your question. And as always, if you have a question or a comment, please feel free to send it to us at trendingfaith@gcu.edu or use the hashtag trendingfaith.